Craigslist has been around long enough that most people know it comes with a certain amount of weirdness baked in. You expect the occasional lowball offer, the blurry photo, the listing that has clearly not been proofread by anyone with functioning eyes. That is the normal noise of the platform, but every so often, buried between the used couches and the guitar lessons and the dog walkers for hire, someone posts something that makes you stop scrolling entirely. Something that makes you read it twice, then a third time, and then sit back from your screen and just think about it for a while. Tonight, I'm going through 13 of the creepiest Craigslist ads I have come across, or had sent to me by people who follow this channel. Some of these are listings that were reported and taken down. Some of them stayed up for days before anyone flagged them. And a few of them, as far as anyone can tell, got exactly the kind of response the person posting them was looking for. I want to say before we start that I am not naming real locations or real usernames in this video to avoid any issues, but the content of every single ad I'm reading tonight is real. These were posted by real people with real intentions behind every word. Stick around, because the further we get into this list, the more specific and the more disturbing the ads become. Number 13 in particular has a detail at the end that I still think about. If you are new here, subscribe before we get into it, and drop a comment telling me which one of these gets to you the most. I genuinely want to know. Let us start. AD number 1. The first one is a roommate wanted listing. Standard category, nothing unusual about the header. It says 2-bedroom apartment utilities split, looking for a quiet female roommate between the ages of 22 and 30, non-smoker, no pets. So far, completely normal. Then it continues. It says the ideal roommate understands that common areas are shared, but that privacy in all forms is essential to a healthy living arrangement. It says the person posting prefers a roommate who keeps a consistent schedule and comes home at predictable times. It says, and this is the part that stopped me, that the apartment has a camera system in the common areas for security purposes, and that footage is reviewed periodically to ensure household rules are being followed. The ad then lists 11 household rules. Among them, do not bring unannounced guests under any circumstances. Do not answer the door without first notifying the landlord via text. Do not discuss the living arrangement with people outside the household. And the last rule listed at the bottom with no additional explanation: please do not go into the hallway closet on the left side of the entry. It is private storage. The ad did not mention what was in the closet. It did not explain why a tenant would need to be formally instructed to stay out of a closet. It ended with a contact number and the phrase, "serious inquiries only, please." That ad was flagged and removed within 24 hours of being posted. The phone number was disconnected by the time anyone tried to call it. AD number 2. This one was in the lost pets section. A man was looking for his dog, a brown and white beagle mix named Chester. Normal enough. He listed the date Chester went missing the neighborhood, a description of the dog, including a green collar with a tag. He included a phone number and asked anyone with information to call or text. Then he added a paragraph at the bottom that no lost pet listing needs. He wrote that he had been driving the neighborhood every night between midnight and 3 in the morning looking for Chester, and that he had identified 3 houses where he believed Chester might have been taken in. He listed the cross streets of each house. He said he had been photographing those properties from his car during his nightly drives and would share the photos with anyone who contacted him. He said he was also documenting the schedules of the residents at those addresses to determine the best time to knock on their doors and ask directly. He described in specific detail the routine of a woman living at one of the 3 addresses: what time her lights came on in the morning, what time her car left the driveway, what time she came home. He wrote it down in a lost pet ad on Craigslist as though that was a normal thing to include. Chester may or may not have existed, The surveillance of that woman absolutely did. Aid number 3, a job posting for a personal assistant. Private household, North American city, pay listed as competitive and negotiable. The job description seemed standard at first. Scheduling errands, correspondence management, some light household management. But as the ad continued, it became something different. The employer wrote that the position required full discretion and that the assistant would be asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement before beginning work. He wrote that the assistant would sometimes be asked to perform tasks at unusual hours, and that flexibility was non-negotiable. He wrote that the assistant must be comfortable with the employer traveling and must be willing to travel as well on short notice, sometimes internationally. He wrote that the assistant must not have close family ties or strong obligations in their current city, as the position may require extended periods away from home. He wrote that previous assistants had left the position due to what he described as personal incompatibility, and that he was looking for someone patient, unquestioning, and capable of maintaining confidentiality above all else. He described the ideal candidate as someone who would not be missed if they were away from their usual life for an extended period of time. He used those exact words, someone who would not be missed if they were away from their usual life for an extended period of time. The application instructions ask for a full name, a home address, a phone number, a photo, and a list of immediate family members with their contact information. AD number 4. This one is in the free stuff section. Somebody was given away a full bedroom set, bed frame, mattress, dresser, nightstand. All free, must take everything together, pick up only cash, not required. The photos attached to the listing showed the furniture in a clean, carpeted bedroom. Nothing visually unusual about any of it, but the description had one sentence that did not belong there. After listing the pieces and the dimensions and the pickup instructions, the poster wrote, "I need this out of my house because I cannot sleep in the same building as it anymore, and I do not want to explain why." That sentence sat at the bottom of a free furniture listing with no further context, no explanation, no follow-up sentence, just that. The listing received over 40 responses within the first few hours. At least a dozen people in the comments asked what had happened with the furniture. The poster did not reply to a single one of them. AD number 5. A missed connections post. Missed connections is the category where people write to strangers they saw briefly in public and wanted to talk to but did not. It is mostly harmless. The occasional love letter to someone spotted on the subway, that kind of thing. This one was different. The poster wrote to a woman he had seen at a specific grocery store on a specific date and time. He described what she was wearing in exact detail, the color of her jacket, the brand of her shoes, the fact that she had a small birthmark on the back of her left hand that he had noticed when she reached past him in the produce section. He described her cart contents. He said he had hoped she would notice him, but she had not seemed to. Then he wrote that he had seen her there before. He listed 7 previous dates on which he had seen her at the same grocery store. He described what she had been wearing on each of those 7 occasions. He noted which checkout lane she preferred and which time of day she most commonly shopped. He said he had been waiting for the right moment to introduce himself, but that so far the moment had not come. He ended the post by writing her approximate home, neighborhood which he said he had determined by observing which direction she drove when she left the parking lot on 3 separate occasions. This is a missed connections post, meaning he posted it publicly, hoping she would find it and recognize herself, meaning he wanted her to know how much he knew about her, meaning the post itself was the introduction. AD number 6, a gig listing. Someone was willing to pay $200 cash for a person to spend one night inside a vacant house. The job description said the house was in a rural area about 40 minutes outside of a mid-sized city. Yes, the poster said he owned the property, but had been dealing with what he called unexplained disturbances and needed someone to stay overnight and document anything they experienced or heard. He said the house had no electricity currently, but that he would provide flashlights and a battery-powered camera. He said the person must stay until 6 in the morning and must not leave before then under any circumstances. He listed 3 requirements for the applicant. First, they must come alone. Second, they must not tell anyone where they were going that night. Third, they must agree to sign a document saying that if anything happened to them on the property, the owner of the property could not be held liable. He wrote those 3 requirements in that order and seemed to see nothing strange about the combination of them. Come alone. Tell no one where you're going. Sign away your right to hold anyone accountable for your safety. $200. AD number 7. This one was in the services offered section. A man advertising himself as a handyman. General repairs, painting, plumbing basics, yard work. Normal stuff. He listed his rates and said he was available 7 days a week, including evenings. I said he had references available upon request. The thing that made this ad strange was not the service he was offering. It was the final paragraph, which read like it had been written by a completely different person in a completely different state of mind than the rest of the ad. He wrote that he was particularly interested in jobs that required him to be inside a home when the primary resident was not present. He wrote that he preferred jobs where the homeowner would leave him with a key and return later rather than supervising the work. He wrote that he found it easier to concentrate without someone watching over him, and that he had always done his best work in empty houses. He then listed, unprompted, that he was very observant and paid attention to details that other people missed. He wrote that he had an excellent memory and rarely forgot anything he saw. He wrote that he looked forward to hearing from homeowners in the area and that he was very good at his job in ways that were not always easy to describe. He included a phone number. No last name, no business name, just a first name, a phone number, and the statement that he was very good at his job in ways that were not always easy to describe. AD number 8, a for sale listing. Not for furniture or electronics or a car. This person was selling a collection of personal items that did not make sense together. A woman's winter coat size medium listed as barely worn. A pair of women's running shoes size 7 listed as good condition. A woman's travel bag still containing what the poster described as miscellaneous toiletries. A woman's phone case described as compatible with a specific phone model. The items were all from the same person. The poster described them collectively as items left behind by a former tenant. He said he needed the space and had no way of returning them to the original owner. He priced them individually, reasonable prices, nothing unusual about the numbers. At the bottom of the listing, he wrote that he was not able to provide information about where the original owner had gone or why she had left the items behind. He wrote that he was asking buyers not to inquire about this, as he had already spoken with police and considered the matter closed. He put that sentence in a Craigslist ad selling a woman's shoes and coat and toiletry bag as though it was a normal thing to include in a for sale listing. As though the natural response to buying a stranger's abandoned belongings was to want to know that police had already been involved. AD number 9. A childcare wanted listing. A father looking for a babysitter for his 2 children ages 4 and 7. He listed the hours he needed, the pay rate, the neighborhood. He wrote that the children were well behaved and that the job was straightforward. Then he added a section of requirements that escalated as you read further down the page. He said the sitter must be female. He said the sitter must be available for overnight stays on short notice. He said the sitter must be willing to keep the arrangement private and not discuss it with friends or family because he valued his family's privacy. He said he did not want the sitter using her phone during work hours and asked her to leave it in her car during shifts. He said he preferred a sitter who was relatively new to the city and did not have an established social network locally, as he found this type of person tended to be more reliable and less distracted. He said he did not use a formal contract and preferred to keep things informal and based on trust. He wrote that the previous sitter had left unexpectedly and that he was hoping to find someone more stable who would be in it for the long term. He wrote that he would conduct the interview at his home and asked interested applicants to include a photo with their response. Leave your phone in the car, do not tell anyone, no contract, photo required, new to the city with no local connections. Those children may be real. That does not make this ad any less of what it clearly is. Aid number 10, a housing listing. A man renting out a basement room in his home. He listed the price, the amenities, the neighborhood. He said the room was newly renovated and quiet. He said he was a private person who expected his tenants to be the same. The house rules section of this listing was 14 items long. I'm going to read some of them directly because I do not think paraphrasing does them justice. Rule 4, tenant agrees not to have visitors of any kind without written prior approval from the landlord. Rule 6, tenant agrees to keep a consistent daily schedule and to inform the landlord in writing of any deviations from that schedule at least 24 hours in advance. Rule 9, tenant agrees to keep bedroom door open at all times when inside the room unless sleeping for ventilation purposes. Rule 11, tenant acknowledges that the landlord may enter the tenant's room at any time for inspection purposes and that no advance notice is required. Rule 13, tenant agrees not to discuss the living arrangement or the property with outside parties. Rule 14, tenant agrees that disputes of any kind will be handled internally between tenant and landlord without involvement of outside parties, including, but not limited to, law enforcement. Rule 14, without involvement of outside parties, including but not limited to law enforcement. That is a rental agreement rule, posted publicly on Craigslist by a man renting out a basement room. AD number 11, a missed connections post, but unlike the grocery store one I described earlier, this one was addressed to a man. A woman writing to a man. She said she had met briefly at a rest stop along a highway in the Southwest. She said she had been traveling alone and had stopped to use the restroom and get coffee. She said she had noticed him watching her from across the parking lot and that he had followed her back to her car and stood near it while she got in. She said she had driven away quickly and he had watched her go. Then she wrote that she had been thinking about him ever since and that she wanted to find him and thank him. She said she felt he had been watching over her, protecting her, and that she found it comforting rather than frightening. She said she was returning to the same rest stop on the same day of the following week at the same time and hoped he would be there. She posted her physical description, her approximate age, the make, model, and color of her car, the time she planned to arrive. I do not know if this post was written by a woman with genuinely poor judgment about a man who had been surveilling her in a rest stop parking lot. I do not know if it was written by the man himself to establish a cover story or create a record of a planned meeting. I do not know if it was written by someone else entirely for reasons I cannot determine. What I know is that a woman's car and her planned location and time were posted publicly on Craigslist, inviting a man who had followed her to her car at a highway rest stop to come find her again. Aid number 12, a jobs listing. Not a job being offered, but a job being sought. A man advertising himself as available for hire. He listed himself as reliable, discreet, experienced in logistics and transportation, and comfortable working irregular hours. He said he was willing to travel, had no criminal record, and asked only that the employer pay in cash and not require paperwork of any kind. That on its own is unusual, but not necessarily alarming. Then he listed his specific skills. He wrote that he was experienced in moving large quantities of material quickly and without drawing attention. He wrote that he was skilled at operating in low visibility conditions, including at night and in unfamiliar environments. He wrote that he had experience with long-distance transport and was comfortable driving extended hours without stopping. He wrote that he was good at solving problems that arose unexpectedly, and that he used judgment rather than rules when making decisions. He wrote that he had experience working in situations where speed and discretion were more important than asking questions. More important than asking questions. He included a phone number and said he was available immediately and could start within 24 hours of a confirmed offer. That ad was posted in the gigs section under general labor. It stayed up for 6 days before it was removed. Ad number 13. I have saved this one for last because of one specific detail that I think about more than anything else on this list. It is not the longest ad. It is not the most obviously threatening, but it has something in it that I cannot explain away, no matter how many times I try. The listing was in the for sale section. The person was selling a collection of handwritten journals. They said there were 11 journals total, all written by the same person, spanning a period of about 4 years. They said the journals were personal in nature and contained detailed daily entries. They were asking $40 for the complete set and said they would not sell them individually. When a commenter on the reposted screenshot of this ad asked how the seller had come to be in possession of someone else's personal journals, the seller replied with one sentence. He wrote, "She will not be needing them anymore. She will not be needing them anymore. Not she moved away. Not she passed them along. Not she gave them to me. She will not be needing them anymore." Present tense implication, active voice, a living person who no longer has access to her own journals because of something that has already occurred. The ad was flagged, and a welfare check was requested by a user who screenshotted the exchange and posted it to a public forum. The check was conducted. What the responding officers found at the address connected to the account was never made public. A follow-up post by the person who originally flagged it said only that the situation had been resolved and that she was not comfortable sharing more. 11 journals, 4 years of daily entries, $40 for a life written in someone's own handwriting, and a seller who knew with complete certainty that she would not be needing them anymore. So that is 13 ads. 13 postings from a platform that most of us use without thinking twice. A place where you sell your old couch and find a moving crew and look for a dog walker. Most of the people who post on Craigslist are exactly what they appear to be, but some of them have thought very carefully about what they need and who they are looking for and how to find that person without anyone noticing what they are actually asking for. The Rule 14 landlord. The handyman who does his best work in empty houses, the man selling journals that a woman no longer needs. They were all on the same platform as everyone else. Their listings looked like listings. The language was calm. The formatting was normal. That is exactly how it works when someone knows what they are doing. Read carefully. Trust the sentence that does not belong. And if something at the bottom of a listing makes you set your phone down and stare at the ceiling for a second, pay attention to that response. Your brain found something before your eyes finished reading. If you have seen a Craigslist ad that belongs on this list, post it in the comments below. I look through everything, and if enough of them come in, we will do a follow-up video with reader submissions. Subscribe if you are not already, and hit the bell. New videos go up every single week. Stay aware and stay safe out there.